What do you say, everybody? Welcome to Elephant in the Room. He's Jake Coker. I'm Mick Gillispie, and we're glad to have you guys here with us on Roll Tide Pods. Getting closer to kickoff. Camp has started. We're four practices in. I'm going to get Jake's opinion on what Kalen DeBoer has said, where we're at right now with the offense. Also, want to talk about the new top 25 coaches poll. Alabama not ranked in the top 3 for the first time since 2009. How offensive is that, Alabama? Before we do anything else, though, I want to tell you guys that we appreciate you being here. Like and subscribe. That's just a way of knowing. And when you hit the bell, you'll know when our show drops. And with our schedules, it's not on a, we try to do it every Monday and then maybe Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We try to do 3 a week, but they don't always drop at the same time. So hit that bell so you know when those shows are dropping. And we're presented by Roback. Use the promo code Room20 and you get 20% off a great shirt. I know. Look at that. Look at that dog. He looks like a friendly fella there. And I know you're not a big dog guy, which is surprising.
No, I'm not a energetic dog guy. I love a dog that sits there and you don't even know he's there unless you go pet him. No,
so you're calling out John. You're calling out John. That's what you're doing right now.
There's a lot of dogs that if I walk into a house and that thing's bouncing all over me, I'm probably not going to be there long.
Well, that's John. We're still trying to train him, man. We're trying to get him trained up. He just loves people so much. When you're at the house, you go trying to get to the studio. All he wants to do is just give you a big hug.
Yeah. It's like that buddy of yours that doesn't know he's had too many beers, and you kind of. I mean, he's coming out, on all cylinders, and you realize it's time to go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Sometimes people talk about that buddy being.
Yeah, right.
I'm just kidding. All right, look.
I like what you're doing.
Throwing it right at you. Now, John's definitely that type of dog. Well, let's start with practice, and then we'll get into the top 25 coaches poll. But Alabama, 4 practices in, pads on Saturday and Sunday. They're practicing in the morning instead of at night like you guys did when you were at Alabama. Well, let's just kind of get into what the difference is practicing in the morning rather than practicing at night. And which one do you like better?
I like it when it's mixed up. We when I was at Florida State, we practiced in the morning during camp before the sun came up. So when I was at Florida State, we didn't have an indoor. So, usually in the Panhandle or around Mobile, it's kind of clear in the mornings and then storms will just pop up out of nowhere. So we practiced in the morning at Florida State a good bit of the time my last year there. And honestly, I love it because you go practice in the morning, you just have meetings for the rest of the day, recover, get ready for the next day, unless you had a 2-a-day. So it was really nice, but at the same time, honestly, if you're playing down here, it's probably best to get conditioned for the heat in the afternoon because I think that one of the good things about playing at Alabama and having Coach Saban and Scott Cochran was that, physically you went through so much, in workouts over the summertime, just prior to camp, during camp, during each practice and each workout, it was always as hard as it could possibly be physically. And so when you got into these games, I mean, of course you were tired, but it wasn't I didn't feel like you were, at that level of worn out like you were in workouts. Now, at the same time, I mean, I wasn't playing offensive line or defensive line. I mean, I was, playing quarterback. So the workouts were harder than practice a lot of times. But, I do think it's good to go ahead and condition your body and get ready for that kind of atmosphere. make the games as easy as possible by practicing in the harshest conditions possible.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that in the afternoon, the conditions are harder, and you think that that's why it's probably a good thing to do that. And they send out the practice schedule. They're going to be practicing during the day. I was more concerned about if you're used to practicing in the morning and then all of a sudden, now you go and you're, playing a game at night, like I would think that your schedule's off.
Yeah. I mean, camp kind of evolves as you move through it. So, the first 3 weeks are just reps, as many as you can get. Get pretty polished at the basics and expand on that as much as possible. And then, 2 weeks out from the game, you kind of get into that phase of, when school's getting ready to start, you're getting back into that, I guess, more oiled up machine that's you get into that season type schedule. So you're back on the afternoon practice schedule and everything's a lot more routine and everything kind of fits together perfectly. So, you're practicing at 2:00 the last 2 weeks of camp and that game day feels a lot more normal than getting up at 5 a.m. to go, practice before the sun comes up. Now, I think they're practicing at 9:30 though. I don't think it's a true early morning practice. I think they're just knocking it out at 9:30, and then they've got the afternoon to kind of recover and go through meetings after practice, which I do enjoy having meetings after practice because it's fresh in your mind. You feel like more time to go over everything and kind of critique each rep. And, when you're meeting before practice, then you head home, it feels like you're trying to hit everything a certain time period and be very scheduled, whereas you can't really expand on things you may really be having issues with. So in that way, I think when you're going through the learning process of a new system, I think morning practices are very helpful and just being thorough and learning from your mistakes.
One of the things we talked about, I was a guest on the next round today. I filled in for Dunaway. So Dunaway's in Fairhope right now at Point Clear, and I was in his seat on the next round show. So the 3 hours, man, that's a lot of talking.
Yeah, that's a pretty good show. Yeah, that's a pretty good show. We've done a couple of those.
Huh? I know.
Shank's it seems like Shank's around.
Yeah, because he's the Mr. Intellectual, man. He comes up with a lot of stuff that makes you think, It's like, I love the conversation with Shank. And if you're not your sharpest around Shank, then it's like you miss out. You're missing some of the stuff that he's putting out there, which I love that about him too. He's really, really intelligent. But we were talking about the second year for Milroe and how he talked about how it's different. He doesn't have anything to prove. He doesn't have, to win a job. He doesn't have to convince the team. And I said today on the next round, I said, you would have loved to had that opportunity.
Oh, well, it's, the second half of the season, it's almost like you're not a freshman anymore. I've heard Lane say that. I've heard several coaches say that. Once you've stabilized yourself as the starter and everybody knows you're the guy and that's who they look at for answers and to make plays and get us in the right position, it completely changes the level of your ceiling, in my opinion, because it gives you that confidence to go out there and play and know that, even if you make mistakes, you're still going to be out there. You're still the guy. In terms of quarterback play, I think it may be different for certain guys, but for me, when I got that nod and I was told I was the guy, I was able to play at a different level. And especially, later on in the season, I thought my best games were outside of Georgia. My best games were in the latter part of the season. And I can't imagine how good that must feel to be the starter, throughout a summer, moving into fall, going through fall camp. It just allows you to grow a lot more as a quarterback, with that comfort level. Uh, and you see guys, time and time again, guys that are first-year starters, and then they roll in the second year, and you're like, who is this guy? This is a complete
Right.
– I mean, Joe Burrow is one of those examples. You watch him in his first year, and you kind of think he's a good quarterback his first year, but the second year it was like, where did this come from? And that having a good relationship with your OC, your quarterback coach, that goes a long way as well. I mean, that's when you have a lot of chemistry there, the quarterback play seems to really get to a level that I think you get to a level there where you're maxing out your potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
When coaches are behind you, you got a great relationship with your quarterback coach. You can speak freely. It really allows you to progress at a rate that you probably never saw before or never thought you were capable of getting to.
Yeah, the defense lost so many players during the transition between Saban and DeBoer, and I wish that they would have had more players like what Milroe was able to do with the offense. He kind of just kept everybody together.
Yeah, well, him and the offensive line,
Yeah, them too. Booker, saying, hey, this is where I want to be, man.
Yeah, well, those guys, obviously, they love playing with each other. They had a great bond. They kind of came up together, were named starters together. Last year when we started the season, I didn't feel like there was anybody on the offensive side of the ball that you really looked to, and they hadn't reached that level of, you see a lot of those jerseys in the stands because of how well they were known. And then by the end of last year, a lot of stars in terms of Alabama football, rose to the top. Whether it be offensive line, Jalen Milroe. A lot of those guys made a name for themselves at Alabama. And it's hard to leave once you build that kind of legacy there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's a loyalty that has been lost in some places. And I hope that we figure out a way to continue that, because it's always been one of the special things about the University of Alabama. But Milroe off to a great start, leading the team.
And let me tell you what, Jalen, it seems like every day during the summer he was somewhere with somebody doing something. He's really benefited from sticking around. He's had some life experiences, and Alabama, in terms of marketing, has done everything they could possibly do to get him out there and maximize his opportunity within NIL.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what the board does with him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, his versatility. Michael Penix, obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the country last year, and a dynamic thrower. But I hadn't seen anybody run the football like Jalen Milroe. It's like his running ability is like that of Michael Vick. It may not be. He's not as big as Cam Newton. Cam Newton didn't have his speed and agility, but he has got the Michael Vick type athleticism and the ability to throw the ball. Michael Vick, his arm was unbelievable. It's kind of hard to put anybody on Michael Vick's level in terms of throwing strength. Him and Jamarcus Russell are kind of close to that same type strength, but to have the throwing ability that Jalen Milroe has, and then that Michael Vick type athleticism, Kalen DeBoer has to be really excited about, the opportunities that are going to be presented with him, because, if you're not having a good day running the ball, they can throw it. If you're not having a good day throwing the ball, you got a lot of guys that can run it, and when you have to account for the quarterback running the ball and throwing it, it's going to be a long day.
Oh, yeah. Well, and we talked about this before. They said that some of the things he was working on, and he was talking about, deep balls, and I think he's got to be more of he's got to use that running as a weapon more. I didn't think he did enough of it convincing type runs like he did against Georgia, against Michigan. But I mean, I think that his game's really good. I feel like, though, the weakness that he's probably working on right now the most, he has to be, right? Short, mid-range passing, footwork, being able to stop back and put a little juice on it and get it in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, his strengths, to me, running the ball, I think he throws a hell of a deep ball, and he does a great job biding time in the pocket, creating plays. But yeah, it's that rhythmic shotgun 3-step rhythm throw that I think, and I don't think he necessarily struggles with it. But if you've got to pick out a weakness, I think that timing throw off of that rhythmic 3-step drop, or the catch and throw ball, that's probably what he needs to work on the most. But again, I mean, the guy last year, if you take the last 6 games of the season, you completely discount the first 6. There's not a whole lot of guys that had a better year than he did, or a 6-game stretch. So, he's got a lot of things to work on, and everybody does. But if you're asking me if there's anybody else in the country that I'd like to be our quarterback in Alabama, there's nobody that jumps out at me, especially in this scenario when you got a bunch of new guys, you got a leader like him, and he gives you so many options on offense.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. It's exciting, man. I'm excited about this offensive line. I can't wait to see Brailsford snap the ball cleanly to him and, him just get it and be able to worry about like who he's going to throw the ball to. A lot of talk about Ryan Williams as he tries to adjust, but it's going to have to be other guys because I can't imagine Ryan Williams, day one being a factor. But I think eventually he will be. But the running back room seems like it's going to be pretty solid. And with that offensive line blocking, like I think they're capable of doing. And now Caden Proctor's starting to work with the number ones again and help out on that and with that group. This running game could be something that Kalen DeBoer really hasn't had at his disposal before with Haynes and Young and Miller.
Yeah, I mean, offensive line, quarterback, running back, talent. He had some pretty damn good talented, pretty dang good receivers at Washington. In comparison to the youth we have this year. Again, the receiving core is the only thing that I'm nervous about, and the reason I'm nervous about it is because they hadn't had time to be together and build chemistry with Jalen yet. Ryan Williams, you watch him, and physically he's as talented as anybody you're going to find, throughout the country. It's just it's like that story I told a few shows ago. Calvin Ridley, he was a true freshman when he came in. Robert Foster was actually starting over him my senior year. But you knew Calvin was going to be one of those guys who came in and played. And then Robert Foster got hurt in the Ole Miss game. Calvin's got to step in and play full time. And, it takes game reps to really build chemistry with somebody because the timing has to be perfect in games on those bang-bang plays. And, Calvin could make big-time plays, first day walking on campus.
Really?
But after about, but doing the small things, the route timing, doing everything just right, how you wanted it, it takes time as a true freshman. And so I think once he gets those games under his belt with Jalen, he's going to be like Calvin Ridley towards the end of the year where, you tell him to run a route, and it's going to be a touchdown as long as the ball's there, against the right coverage. There's going to be certain plays you set up where Ryan Williams, they're going to make sure he knows how to run really good routes for certain games against certain looks. I think early in the year where it's going to be a touchdown if the ball's there. And then I think, latter into the year, he's going to be out there a lot more, and he's going to be a guy that you can trust to turn, 5, 10, 15-yard chunks into touchdowns just based on his familiarity with that offense later on.
Yeah. What I'm hoping is that Alabama ends up with 3 or 4 guys they can really count on. And somebody's got to step up at tight end. Without Black, who transferred to Texas, one of the few guys that we did lose on offense, it's going to have to be somebody else that you have that big physical pass catching guy that is your emergency dump off.
Black and Bond, man. Black was one I hated to see leave because he had length and he was physical and tough. I thought he was going to be a really good player, and tight ends that are physical like that aren't afraid to get beat around. They'll extend for the ball over the middle. Those are things you can't really teach. I mean, that's instinctual. That's having some dog in you, and again, you can't teach that. And those are the kind of guys that build championship teams. I never met Nye Black, but watching him play, he was, to me, the type of guy you want on your team. And so that one hurt to see. A lot of potential, and he'd have made a lot of plays in Tuscaloosa. So, yeah, tight ends, that's another position where, through the years we've had some pretty damn good ones, and you got to have somebody step up and fulfill that tight end legacy at Alabama.
Kind of wrapping it up, 4 practices in, you got, guys going into their, pads for the first time, getting out there, getting after it. When do we start seeing position battles? Like, when do we start kind of getting an idea of this guy's going up against this guy, going up against this guy? Is that happening already? Or is it at the beginning, you just kind of going through, hey, this is how I want you to do everything? Then you start getting into that. How's that work?
I mean, the coaches have a pretty good idea, right? I mean, you've been watching summer workouts. You've seen, summer workouts, you got 7-on-7s, you got drills throughout the summer, and they're done on that field or in the indoor, and, coaches aren't supposed to be there, but they're watching.
Yeah.
Right. They're seeing it all. And so they got a pretty good idea of where everybody is, and there's some guys they're probably pretty excited about based on what they've seen, the initiative that certain guys have taken. But it'll be week 3 till we really know. But the coaches' minds are, I would say, 70% of the way there, knowing who their guys are going to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we're going to figure out right now. The offensive line's going to have a few spots. Obviously wide receivers got to be open. You also have, what the running back room's going to look like. Who's going to play, but how much are they going to play? What positions are they going to play in? And then the secondary, hearing a lot of good things about Xavier Brown, who is a 5-star cornerback that's a freshman, trying to get playing time. Monty Jackson's done a really nice job. He's the guy that transferred from USC. I think he was a former 5-star. I'm just convinced that Kalen Mbakwe is going to be a great player one day. I really believe that. Could be sooner than later just because we're going to need him to play. But that cornerback group to me is one where you got Malachi Moore, Keon Sabb, the transfer from Michigan, your 2 safeties. You got these guys all battling for this cornerback spot. And I feel like so much of the team's early success is going to depend on how fast these guys can figure it out.
Yeah, this is one of the first, over the last few years, we've been pretty, just historically, you look at Alabama teams, you haven't leaned on the offense in most of Coach Saban's tenure. Now, later on, towards the end, as football really evolved, you had Bryce Young and you had, Tua and Mac, all these guys. You saw a lot of high scoring games. But this year in particular, I think, the offense is going to have to be versatile. They're going to have to put up points. They're going to have to keep the defense off the field. And I keep harping on this first 6 games deal. I know I do. But as long as we can survive those, and the offense can play well, you got a lot of leadership on the offensive side of the ball. As long as those guys, can keep us in games and win a few games within that first 6-game stretch, I think we have more than a pretty good chance to be seated pretty well in the playoff. If we lose our first, 2 games, that first 6-game stretch, it's going to be tough, and we're going to be trying to sneak in there in 12 on that 12th spot. But I think we're going to have a good second half of the season. It all just depends on, how we come out and perform in that first 6-game stretch.
It'll be fun to watch. Guys, that's it for Elephant in the Room. We're going to try to get back 2 times this week, so make sure that you just hit the bell so you know when we're going. And share with your friends. We really appreciate the views. The show's picked up a lot of steam from you guys. So thank you. Really from both of us. We're pretty excited about that. I also want to mention that we're brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use the promo code NEXTROUND, and you'll get a generous cashback offer bonus, really, for getting in there and throwing those picks out. And it's almost that time. It's almost that time where we'll start from the beginning. I guess we'll go mano a mano on picks.
Oh, yeah.
I know how you think now. I know how you think now.
Florida, Miami, LSU, USC, and what's the other one? Texas A&M, Notre Dame. Can't get here fast enough.
It's going to be big time.
Fast enough.
He's fired up. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you again later this week. So stick around. We got a lot of football to talk about right here on Roll Tide Pods.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.